After almost 9 months of silence, the long-awaited news drought regarding Larian Studios' much-anticipated sequel to the isometric Baldur's Gate series is finally here. Revealed today at PAX East, Baldur's Gate 3's first gameplay reveal occurred, and let's just say it's gotten quite the upgrade since its debut in 1998. Being created by Larian Studios, it's unsurprising at first glance to see just how similar the title looks to their last work, Divinity Original Sin 2. Now, I know the question a lot of you are asking, and we'll answer it right up front. Yes, the gameplay is turn-based, which is a departure from Baldur's Gate's original design as an isometric pause-and-play type of game. Now, this is probably going to cause joy in some of you who enjoyed the Divinity style, but kind of dismay in others who are hoping for that true Baldur's Gate experience like they experienced all the way back in 1998. Now, beyond just being a turn-based RPG, a ton of other things were revealed about the game in this gameplay reveal, and we're going to be diving into all of these aspects if you stick around. Now, kind of starting just generally looking at the game from afar, the UI and general appearance of the game looks very, very similar to what we've seen with Divinity Original Sin 2, though obviously this is going to be modified to fit the world of Faerun, which is the foremost setting of Dungeons & Dragons. Starting where most games do, at character creation, we start in an extremely similar predicament that we find ourselves with Divinity Original Sin 2, and that's with named characters of various origin stories that allow players to choose either to play one of these pre-written characters with a further developed backstory and full voice acting, or creating and customizing their own. These pre-written character origin stories were some of the most praised elements from Divinity Original Sin 2, and thus I don't think it's too surprising to find their inclusion in Baldur's Gate 3. Currently, the options and our companions are a Stalaron, a centuries-old vampire-spawn rogue who serves a sadistic master and can suddenly find himself with the ability to walk in the light. Will, a human warlock who made a pact with the devil and is desperate to escape his hellish bargain. Shadowheart, a half-elf cleric of the Trickery domain who worships the evil goddess Shar, who was sent on a suicide mission to steal an item of great power. Gale, a human wizard who holds a Netherese destruction orb in his chest that will someday explode large enough to level an entire city. And last, Lizelle, a Githyanki fighter who has fought against the Mind Flayers for years, but now risks turning into the very enemy she's worked so hard to fight. Players who forego playing one of these pre-written, kind of pre-generated characters will find themselves in for a treat, as customizing a character attempts to mimic character design in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition as closely as possible, with various allowances of races and even sub-races that come with their own unique abilities and modifiers. And starting off, the game will launch with 6 classes, which is actually less than half of the current 13 classes available in Pen and Paper 5th edition. These classes include the Wizard, the Cleric, the Fighter, the Warlock, the Rogue, and the Ranger. Now, some of these classes even have subclasses that are found in their 5th edition counterparts as well, such as the Cleric, who gets to choose a domain or a type of deity that they worship that does affect their class in a big way. Just how many of these subclasses are going to be available versus the pen and paper game is unclear right now, though given that they have only created 6 classes, I can't imagine they went too crazy in creating subclasses as well. After choosing a race and a character class, similar to pen and paper games, characters will then spend ability points and select from various skills such as persuasion, religion, deception, etc. they are then trained in that allow them to do better at various skill checks or rolling a d20 plus any additional modifiers you have to overcome a type of skill challenge that may present themselves across the player's adventure. Now, once in the demo we had created a character and started to kind of dive in, we can really see where Baldur's Gate 3 starts to distinguish itself versus Divinity Original Sin rather than just being a copy. Let's start off with the fact that the game is fucking beautiful, and it looks like Dragon Age Inquisition and Divinity Original Sin had a baby on accident, but ended up being the best thing that ever happened to them. The opening cinematic is nothing short of a movie, and its seamless transition into a third-person isometric view without losing detail is extremely impressive. I mean, just watch this dragon bust its head into the side of a Mind Flayer ship and tell me you're not excited for this game. After doing some exploration, another unique part of Baldur's Gate 3 shows up with our first interaction with another character in the demo. Unique to Baldur's Gate 3 is the fact that we will now move into a first-person perspective when speaking with individuals, rather than the original Baldur's Gate and Divinity Original Sin's approach, which had an isometric or top-down view even when speaking to other people. This does a lot to bring the game into a more modern spotlight and really highlights the attention to detail that has gone into this game and its character designs. Speaking of character design, let's talk about how we already see that we have a Githyanki in our party, and previously released photos showed a Tiefling or possibly even a Cambion in the party, which are all very unique even in Dungeons & Dragons, which is full of races to choose from. I haven't seen any races like this in an RPG party since Obsidian's Neverwinter Nights 2, all the way back in the early 2000s. From here, the demo quickly went into combat, and fans of the Divinity series will feel right at home here, though again with a little bit more of that 5th edition flair. Combat starts as it always does in Dungeons & Dragons, by rolling for initiative. But rather than each individual or monster doing so, as was done in previous Divinity games and is done in the pen and paper Dungeons & Dragons game, it appears to be a group effort with everyone on each side of combat going at the same time, rather than skipping back and forth, which allows for more combos between your party members and between your enemies. Utilizing environmental triggers, as seen in previous Divinity games, and the surprise condition was done several times across the demo to show how important strategic thinking is in Dungeons & Dragons and in Larian games in general. With this, action points came back into play, as Divinity fans might remember, as kind of a currency that was used in combat for pretty much anything that you wanted to do. While this is still kind of the case, the system drops a much more literal translation of the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition combat rules in place, with casting a spell or making an attack costing you your action. You then can move a certain amount of speed every round, despite however many action points you have, and then you also get a bonus action, which can be anything from an additional spell, to shoving a creature, to drinking a potion. Other more advanced aspects of the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition combat system have also literally been translated, and this includes key aspects such as attacks of opportunities, advantage and disadvantage, reactions, and what qualifies as such, all of which demonstrate and illustrate that this is a much deeper RPG combat system than gamers are used to getting, and will therefore reward people who think strategically versus attempting to do every kind of combat situation with pure brute force. The spells and abilities from Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition have been very literally placed into the game to allow you to continue to use combinations that you may have used in the pen and paper game before, but have also added new systems to allow gamers who have previously used Divinity games as well to use aspects that they've used before, such as dipping a bow into fire or igniting kind of exploding barrels left on the battlefield. Beyond just combat spells, other abilities have been worked in as well from the pen and paper game, such as the ability to speak with animals, or even casting the speak with dead spells, which Larian has confirmed can work on any corpse as long as it still has a mouth. And with the added confirmation that all dialogue in Baldur's Gate 3 is voice acted, that is no small feat. However, dissimilar to Larian's previous games, spellcasting is a finite resource in Dungeons & Dragons, as casters are only given a certain number of spell slots that they can utilize in one day. If a caster reaches 0, they can't cast any magic that is beyond a cantrip or the most basic form. Thus, in order to gain spell slots back, what characters must do is take a long rest, which is no less than 8 hours, and this concept has been added to Baldur's Gate 3 as well. To do this, characters will utilize the campsite when they would like to take a long rest. This is a kind of instanced area where all of your party members will hang out and allow you to socialize with them, which players who may have played Dragon Age Origins will find very, very familiar. Larian Studios has stated multiple times that this will be a central story point for you to kind of socially get to know your characters, and many characters will come in and out of the campsite depending on if they're traveling with you or not. We also saw the campsite utilized as a kind of internal dialogue message within your own character, and various skill checks even within your own mind about how you're dealing with the situation that you're currently finding yourself. The vast majority of the rest of the demo was emphasizing different other aspects of combat, showing how different characters can help each other or utilize combos, sneaking, using thieves' tools, and gaining magical items. Unfortunately, a bug near the end of the demo caused it to kind of glitch out, and given that they could not even save their game at the demo, we weren't left with the final finale or the revisit to campsite that was originally planned for the demo, and we may see quickly here in the future. It has been stated that Larian would like to take the game into early access like they have done with Divinity Original Sin and Divinity Original Sin 2, and that this will be a kind of shrunken down version of the game, allowing you to play maybe 10 or so hours, but not kind of releasing the whole package until the game fully releases at a later date. When exactly the full release is going to happen is still a date that is up in the air, and no official announcements were made at the gameplay reveal trailer at PAX East. Additionally, in a Q&A session after the gameplay trailer, it was asked multiple times whether or not known companions from previous Baldur's Gate games, such as Minsc and Boo, would appear in the game, to which we only gotten a dodgy, "I can't answer that." However, despite the dodgy answers, we were still given a ton of information at this gameplay reveal, and people have a much better idea of what kind of game this is going to be now that we've seen it in action. There's still a lot of work to be done on the game, which is clear from the fact that it crashed more than once during the demo. However, it does look like a very finished and polished project, and I cannot wait to play another AAA game set in the Baldur's Gate universe. I'd love to hear your guys' comments on any of these aspects, but specifically, if you guys prefer pause and play versus turn-based combat, leave those thoughts in the comments below, as we can all just kind of speculate on what Baldur's Gate 3 is going to hold from now on. I suspect now that we've gotten a general release of gameplay, much more news is going to be coming down in the pipeline in 2020 regarding Baldur's Gate 3, and you can stay right here for all things Dungeons & Dragons and Baldur's Gate. If you're someone new to Dungeons & Dragons because you like Divinity Original Sin but don't really understand the rules, check out my other videos regarding Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition that you can find on either side of the video here. I'm RPGMD, writing you a prescription on all things dice, dragons, and gaming, and I'll be seeing you guys next week.